Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bongani Shiba of Walk Tall with Shiba, the show that seeks to inspire, motivate others. Today's episode is going to be talking about suicide in Swaziland. We have themed it suicide. Your story is not over yet. We want to explore how does it affect the Swazis? How do we get to suicide? Who is likely to commit suicide? And what can we do when we realize that a person that we know, a family member, a friend, a loved one, is having suicidal thoughts? This is Bongani Shiba of Walk Tall with Shiba. We're back, and right about now we have our panelists with us here at the Mountain Inn Library. And women attempt it more often. Why? This, of course, by my understanding and from a few, talking to a few people, is always labeled seeking attention. Are you seeking attention by over-medicating?
Definitely not. I mean, there's definitely certain societal vulnerabilities that would make women more likely to maybe attempt suicide. Women have a higher rate of depression. Women are more vulnerable to sexual and gender-based violence. You know, those are all those aspects. And being in a system of patriarchy also makes you more vulnerable with that. You know, hard to negotiate certain things. Maybe being in a domestic violence situation, it's hard to negotiate that, and then you go home and that's it, you know, say, you know, and then the only escape could be, you know what, I'm so depressed, I'm so miserable in this situation, and I'm being told maybe at church that I must pray. You know what, the only way maybe to escape is to do this. So I think that we definitely find higher rates of depression which also predisposes someone to be suicidal. Again, one of those disorders that definitely predispose someone. So very common also, and then leading to that. And also thinking, you know, you asked me about, you know, being a woman outside of being a psychologist. And there's all these pressures that people have. I mean, we're living in a country where, you know, there's the highest unemployment rate. So, you know, the most productive of the workforce, the 21 to 35 to 40-year-olds, a lot of them are unemployed, lots of pressure, you know, to also just being able to survive, put bread on the table, lots of things, because there's so much about being able to wake up and a sense of identity and earn your living and pay for yourself.
That's right.
That contributes to someone's sense of well-being. It's important also. So in the absence of that, in the absence of opportunities, that also makes just that age group quite vulnerable also. And responsibilities, taking care of parents, most people are still...
Yes, that's true. Men feel pressured to provide, to be successful. On the other hand, women are feeling pressured to survive, to provide, to be successful. Why are we as a society putting each other so much under pressure that we want to leave this world? That is a question that I would like to explore further as we go deeper into the understanding. And the documentary that will be following this episode will try to get deeper into that. The rural areas are not as exposed to possible help and an understanding of mental health and so on. We tend to see that there's more violent suicide in the rural areas, obviously because they don't have access to the medication or that they can overdose on. Why is it that the people in the rural areas are struggling so much with suicide?
I think also, like the psychologist said in the beginning, that, you know, there's a level of high unemployment and all these things. This thing is not only affecting people in the cities, it also goes down to the rural areas, you know, and because they don't have money to go and buy away from tablets, they don't have money to, you know, so they will look for the possible outcome of it, which is a violent death. You know, they'll hang themselves, they, you know, maybe throw themselves in a river or whatever, drown themselves. It's still the same thing, it's the pressures of life. What pushes a man or a woman to suicide? It's a pressure of life. You can't just go there if everything is fine with you. You can't just think of death. You know, normally every human being is scared of death.
Yes,
normally, you know. So for you to push yourself there, it means that there's certain pressure on you. that makes you to even wish to kill yourself, no matter how violent it is, as long as I'm out of this one.
Definitely, and I think also having provided mental health services in rural areas, and she said when previously, I think I noticed that poverty also becomes a factor that makes people vulnerable to mental health, because poverty also induces the sense of helplessness, makes it hard. It's a cycle that's hard to break. It's often intergenerational. So people tend to feel very helpless. You know, what am I going to eat? What are my children going to eat? How can I change this? You know, I'm sick. How do I get to hospital? The nearest clinic is 20 kilometers away. I don't have money. You know, that's all. Poverty is another thing that makes people vulnerable. It's a stressor, it makes people vulnerable to mental illness, and therefore it predisposes people to.
We have been under pressure as men. We have been under pressure as women for ages. We have had a fair amount of poverty. We have had a fair amount of unemployability over the last 40 years or whatever. Why the rise now?
The same challenges, if they were there, were probably predisposing people to certain disorders. Now there's more conversations. Now people are more aware of mental health disorders. Now people have access to the internet, social media. Okay, other countries, you know, you see something being discussed, so now we're talking about it.
So we're just basically more exposed.
Yeah, and we have the media which actually talks about certain things and reports suicide. So people are like, oh, this is actually happening. Whereas maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was more like, shh, should we put this in the paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess people are finally coming out of their shell to be able to discuss these, which is a very good thing. And I would like to say, if there are other forums out there, the social media is a powerful tool. We could use it for making sure that the awareness that Senri was talking about earlier is used. I would like to ask, you mentioned that poverty keeps going. It's a difficult cycle to break. Somewhere I read that it is possible, and please, I could be corrected. It is possible for suicide to be hereditary as well, to be passed on family to family. Like a family has a gene of suicide. Is this true?
Well, there isn't a suicide gene, but I think in terms of the development of psychological disorders, there's definitely a genetic predisposition that makes you more vulnerable maybe to develop depression. But certainly also through social learning. If you come from a family where maybe there has been suicide, someone has, maybe your mother did it, maybe your father did it, or your brother, you know, there's an increased likelihood that you might also, through social learning and seeing someone do it, thinking, okay, this is hard, I also want to escape. So a part of social learning.
So it's not necessarily inherited.
No, there is no suicide gene which you can point out, but definitely people inherit vulnerabilities to mental illness.
And there's this thing called suicide contagion. Once suicide starts hitting in a school, for instance, then I guess the human mind is a copycat. Then there's a rise. Is this a fact? Is this something that happens?
It isn't something that has been verified systematically, but there's certainly been stories of suicide contagion that sometimes people will then follow, they'll hear a story. But usually, you know, they'll hear that people have attempted. And obviously, I think we need to be cautious with that, because hearing about a suicide does not necessarily mean that you're going to go exactly you want to carry out the same thing, because it has to do with what is your current state of mind, how are you feeling, what's going on in your life. So it's not something that has been systematically verified to say that indeed wins people in a particular school. But certainly, I mean, if you hear someone succeeded, if you're already vulnerable to suicide, and you kind of hear someone did something and they succeeded at it, maybe it gives you an idea. And I think also that it gives the media also how it's reported, how suicide is reported, it also becomes important. It has to be done in a way that's responsible, but also speaks about options, that tells people what to do if they feel suicidal, rather than giving people ideas about successful ways of committing suicide.
Mfundisi.
Yes, sir.
Alcohol, drug abuse, and maybe any other kind of abuse. Do you feel that adds on to the rise and makes more people more susceptible to committing suicide?
When it comes to drug abuse, alcohol, most people that really commit suicide, you find that they don't consume much alcohol. They don't, unless someone then they overdose. Not that they wanted to kill themselves, they just overdose. They wanted to go to another higher level of being high. You know what I mean? So most of these people, alcohol become an escape. Drugs become an escape because now you're in another.
Watch yourself for this. You might just sound like you are encouraging people to use drugs.
No, on its own. I mean, if you see, you're trying to escape, still that's a negative. You understand? You're trying to escape from something, it's still a negative. So alcohol and drugs and everything else, you know, most people that drink, if you look at them, they don't really consider suicide. They'll go and get drunk and, you know.
You've worked with the youth.
Yes.
For quite a while. Your observation to if there has been, and I hope you haven't had to deal with suicide, but if there has been a situation where you've had to deal with the youth suicide, you mentioned earlier abuse inside of the home. What other factors? Because earlier on we talked about the man who has the pressure to provide, but how about the young 16-year-old, the 18-year-old, the 20-year-old, the 12-year-old that suddenly decides to take their life?
Okay, now let me just bring in the spiritual aspect of everything.
Yes, please.
As a human being, you see, the fact that you're still living, I'm still living, she's still living, is because of hope. Do you understand? It's because of the hope that I have inside me. People, they tend to commit suicide when they feel hopelessness. If they look to the future, they don't see anything about themselves. I understand. But if I have hope, that's why churches must preach hope, not condemnation. Hope. People are looking for hope. People, they want to hear about hope, that it's going to be better. So tomorrow...
What you're saying to me is, let us not scare people about hell. Let us show people beauty in front of them. Is that what you're saying?
Of course. Even Jesus spoke about money more than he spoke about hell, by the way, if you read the Bible. You know what I mean? Hell is there. You understand? The Bible says it is the love of God that draws people. It's not because of people being scared of hell.
Right.
Okay? It's the love of God that draws people to him. So it's not because of hell. So sometimes we hammer people that, hey, you're going to go to hell. That's really condemnation.
Yes.
You understand? That's because if I say to you, you're going to go to hell, I might be wrong because tomorrow may repent.
Right.
You see? So I've already judged it when I say we're going to go to hell.
Right.
But you see, that's wonderful. So now, what the church needs to do is to bring hope to people. You hear what I'm saying? People are hopeless these days. That's why they tend to commit suicide. Because now, I've been applying to 10 companies. All of them, we are sorry, we regret. Oh, you understand what I'm saying? But there must be somebody that, you know what, no matter how dark the night is, the morning is coming. People need that. That's one thing that, you see, for instance, we have children. One thing that makes you wake up in the morning to go to work is because of your children.
Well, and also I'm afraid to get fired, but yes, that is the reason. Let us preach the message of hope and say your story is not over yet, instead of making people feel like they are failures. You would agree to the message of hope, maybe in a different, not from the spiritual side, but maybe from the mental health side?
Definitely, you know, because we know that people tend to have high motivation and high will to live if they have some hope. They have, you know, you want to exist and live longer if you know that there's something better, there's something worth living for. You feel that it's important also that you are here. You know, you have that sense of purpose and sense of worth in whatever you're doing. Perhaps also part of your belief system can inculcate that within you. But certainly having purpose and trusting that you will get through difficulties, because I think part of that is that what people struggle with. Hit a snag, something happens, you lose someone, you get a trauma, something happens, and then people often wonder, will I ever get over this?